Now, the Home Office has admitted it's lost control, it's lost all trace of thousands of migrants destined to be deported to Rwanda. Of 5,700 migrants who've been identified for removal, an astonishing 3,557 have simply disappeared. They have not necessarily absconded, but they are not subject to reporting restrictions, which means they cannot be located for detention. So only 2,145 of them continue to report to the Home Office and can be located for detention, meaning simply 3,500 have vanished into the ether. Well, to try and help us make sense of this, I'm now joined by border security expert and the former head of UKIP, Henry Bolton. Henry, this is simply astonishing. Over 3,500 earmarked for deportation have simply vanished into the ether. Has the government, even though they're planning to deport them, totally lost control of this situation?
Martin, I think they never had control. I've said repeatedly that if you've made a decision that somebody is going to be turned down for asylum, then you need to detain them immediately, not, wait. And, many of these people, they know, actually, because of the Illegal Migration Act that was passed last year, anybody who comes into the country in small boats from across the channel pretty much knows, and their lawyers and so on will tell them that they are ineligible for asylum in this country because they haven't come directly from the country that they're fleeing. Now, if such a person knows that there's a likelihood that they are going to be detained, knows that there's a likelihood that they're going to be removed, then there is a very high likelihood that they are going to disappear. And in this country, we don't have a national ID card. We're one of the few nations in the world that doesn't. It's mainly sort of some of the Anglosphere countries that don't. But we don't, and so we lose track of these people. If you want to deport somebody, if you want to detain somebody, then do it. Don't put them in a hotel. Don't put them in some sort of accommodation somewhere where they're free to come and go as they please. Look, this is not rocket science. And that is the problem with this whole program, this whole policy of Rwanda. It has absolutely been weak at every single point. And, there are those of us who've been trying to flag these things up to the Home Office. It's falling on deaf ears. So I think it's incompetence, Martin. There's no surprise for me in this at all. I just wonder how many of them are now in the Republic of Ireland.
Well, that was going to be my next point, because, of course, Ireland is maintaining that those who are fearful of deportation are wandering somehow into Northern Ireland, strolling across the border, presenting themselves in Ireland to simply dodge deportation altogether. And those that are sticking around, Henry, are doing so because they get free accommodation and a small allowance. But that, for many, obviously, over 3,500, isn't enough. They simply vanished into the grey economy. They could be anywhere. They may have fled the country. Henry, my next question is quite simple. Is this proof that the only way of getting a handle on this isn't to let people wander around willy-nilly, but to put them in containment centres, as we saw in countries such as Australia, which managed to stop their boats more or less immediately?
I've argued exactly that for probably the last 3 years, Martin, if not longer. Exactly. These people have crossed the border illegally. Now, yes, it may be a defence that they've done so in order to claim asylum, but from July 20th last year, that's no longer even a defence. So we should be detaining all of these people now instead of continue farming them out to hotels and so on. Are they just simply going across the Northern Irish border into the south? The answer is many do. The Irish Republic does provide quite a lot of support to them there as well. The reason they don't go directly there is because it's more difficult to get across to the Republic. The other thing is that, in my experience, migration flows and people smuggling flows move in both directions. And we know that a number of people from West Africa have been flying into Ireland, where they don't have the same immigration arrangements as us, and then moving across the border into Northern Ireland. into mainland UK, then hiding in trucks to try and go across from Dover to mainland Europe because they're trying to get to Germany or wherever they're trying to get to. And it's the easiest way from West Africa for some of them. So, this is, again, no surprise. But I ask, I sit here, I know these things. I've worked in dealing with people smuggling, asylum issues and migration. And the Home Office does this for a living. I no longer do it for a living. They should be totally on top of this. If I know this is going on and I'm trying to raise the red flag, why aren't people in the Home Office doing the same? It's just got to be incompetence or a lack of will to actually make the system work. It doesn't surprise me when until recently they've been working from home, most of them. That doesn't help.
Henry, could I put a couple of points to you from our viewers? They've been getting in touch, gbanews.com/you'll say. We had Ivan Sampson on the show earlier, a human rights lawyer, and he claimed that the vast majority of those coming across the channel are asylum seekers. Now, John, one of our viewers, said this: I don't believe they are asylum seekers. They are economic migrants coming for their own interests, either for our benefits or healthcare, or to work in the black economy. They are a cost to us, both financially and socially. Henry, can we try and get to the bottom of this incessant sort of merry-go-round of a debate? How many people typically do we know are coming here for genuine asylum purposes, and how many are coming here for economic migrant purposes?
Well, Martin, you're asking a question I can't answer. All I can tell you is that many of them, the majority of them, come from countries originally that do have serious human rights issues or conflict issues. But that is not the same as saying that they are refugees. There are many places in Syria that are entirely peaceful. You can come from Syria and come from an entirely peaceful place within Syria. So it's very difficult to establish that, particularly when I don't have the opportunity nowadays to interview these people individually to sort of interrogate the detail of that. However, the problem that the whole of this region, the European region, has, and it must get to grips with, otherwise this problem is going to get worse for all of us, is we are allowing them, once they reach safety, to shop around as to where they wish to be. Now, there may be family links. One might have some sympathy with that. But the essential point here is that they are moving around then to choose the best place for a standard of living. Again, I can't blame them, but we have to protect our own societies, our own economy and our own culture, and indeed our own security. And I can tell you from my own experience dealing with these things, the vast majority of people, and I would put it at about 90 to 95% of the people that I have been involved in dealing with who have been moved through people smuggling networks are 100% economic migrants. 100%. They never moved from at the beginning from fear of their life. But of course, they portray it as though they have, because they know that if they say that they're shopping around for a better life, then they will be immediately detained and removed. So that's the reality of it. We are making this problem ourselves, Martin, by our own policy and the fact that we still refuse to accept that the vast majority of these people are not and never have been fleeing for their lives. And once they get to the North French coast, of course, they're not. One thing, Martin, if we've got time, on the Irish thing, I actually think this is a marvellous opportunity, because it's not come about by design. But if the government has taken exactly the right position, if the Republic of Ireland wants to send people back to here, then fine, but only if the French and the European Union allow us to return people who've crossed the Channel. Now, that has got to be an absolutely immovable position for the government. And if that's the case, we might be able to pull together the European Union, the Irish, the French, and ourselves to start dealing with this problem on the almost global issue level that it needs to be dealt with, certainly on the European regional level. And for those people thinking that the European Union is the answer to this, it absolutely is not, as has been demonstrated by this very case.
Well, actually, Henry, let's have a quick chat about that. The notion that you're right, this could be a massive opportunity. It's like, wow, if Ireland can send asylum seekers, immigrants, whatever, back to the United Kingdom, then we should be doing the same to France. Something that many, many people, certainly who watch this channel, would have wanted all along. The problem is, of course, do we have the will to do that? We haven't done anything remotely similar to that all along, even when millions of voters seem to want it. Now the Irish seem to have stolen a march on us. Do you think there's any opportunity, any will, any possibility that Rishi Sunak might use this as an opportunity to go, yeah, we'll have a bit of that and we'll send ours back to France?
Look, I think Rishi Sunak has been an appalling Prime Minister. And an appalling leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know him personally, so that's not a personal comment. I'm just saying that as, my view of the leader of this nation. If he does not take this opportunity, then he should leave post immediately. He will be letting down not only this country, but he will be ignoring the opportunity that faces the whole of this region to use this situation as a driver to get the whole of the European continent together to address this matter on a strategic level. The population of Africa is due to double by 2050. We know, we all know that Africa can't support a doubling of its population. There will be more poverty, there will be more drought, there will be a greater lack of food and so on. People will want to move. They are not going to go to China or North America. They are going to come north. They are going to come towards Europe. And if we have not got solid policies in place to deal with that, to actually prevent the movement, and even deal with what happens actually at our borders, we are in a very, very bad place. It's only going to get worse from now, unless this opportunity is taken. And I think we've got now an opportunity with the Irish, with ourselves, with the French who don't want them either, and the European Union. I think we can make some things work. And Rishi Sunak now has the most wonderful opportunity to prove to this nation that everything he says is true, that he does have the steel, that he does have the spine, he does have the initiative, and he does have the leadership to actually make this work. Because I believe this is the opportunity. This is his chance. If he doesn't take it, then I'm sorry, my books, he needs to leave now.
Well, Henry Bolton, you've had your Weetabix, you're full of beans. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Always an absolute delight to have you on. And just a quick reminder.